Morning. Quite excited today, actually. I'm particularly inspired, shall we say. So I'm going to crack on straight away with the third part of the ego. Um, we've already looked at you are not what you have, you are not what you do. We're now into the subject of you are not your reputation, or you are not what others think of you. And this is an absolutely critical one, I think, because a lot of us go around worried, I suppose, is the best sense to look at this, worried about what other people think. Now, that's only normal, I suppose, because we're absolutely surrounded by the media telling us what we and magazines, TV, etc., telling us what we should wear, where we should live, how we should talk, how we should walk. We are bombarded with all of this stuff, and to a certain degree, we kind of take on these things in a subtle way. And as I said, we then begin to worry about what people would think. And in terms of our reputation, just going off the back of a previous video, the you are not what you do, then the job that you do, or the kind of work you do, and the way you interact within that organization is also down to reputation. So even in you're comfortable in your particular job, you'd hate to think that somebody in the next office, or one of the managers, or one of your colleagues thinks you're a bit of an idiot. Or whatever. So we worry about other people's perception of us, and I think basically in terms of reputation, I think what you're doing essentially is handing power over to other people. Wonderful statement I got from one of Wayne Dyer's books, and he quoted, you have to become independent of the good opinion of other people. Because ultimately, what you're saying is you're giving power to other people, and you're saying your opinion of me is much more important than the opinion I hold about myself. So, in that context, you're weakened, generally speaking. If you go into something and you're confident, albeit a relationship or a job opportunity, people like that a hell of a lot more than they do someone who's perhaps a people pleaser. A good example of this is, I suppose, if you go for a meal, and or if you're even talking about your favorite food, and someone will say, what kind of food do you like? And they'll say, oh, I like Chinese. And then the guy who's the people pleaser will say, yeah, I like Chinese. And then someone else will say, well, no, I don't like Chinese. It's like bait, And the guy who's the people pleaser will say, I don't really like Chinese, and so on and so on. So it's not being honest, and it's not being true to yourself, particularly when you're passionate about something. And these videos that I'm doing, this exploration that I'm doing, is something that is something I'm passionate about. And regardless of people's opinion of that, whether they think it's all nonsense, whether they think the spiritual development path is something they can't access, that's entirely their choice. And regardless of what they think of me, it just makes no difference to me whatsoever. It really doesn't. And I don't say that in a snippy way. I don't say that in a uncaring way. I just think we have to be conscious of looking after our own reputation inside. Again, I keep talking about this internal work that I think helps us. So, when we worry about these kind of things, it just brings on all manner of stress and anxiety that I think could be put to rest very quickly when you go about your day, independent of the good opinion of other people. I've got it written behind me on the wall there, and it's something I look at daily. And I said it's not about being rude, and it's not about being inconsiderate to other people. It's just following your bliss, I suppose, because ultimately these people who have an opinion of you, um, when they leave your life, when they go out of your life, then it kind of leaves you a little bit in the lurch, because you go around searching for people to validate your very existence. And I find that quite a lot. I'm drawn to people who are confident. You probably are yourself, particularly if they almost have a secret uh, of sorts inside, and it really intrigues me when I see those kind of people. I'm very much drawn to those kind of people. Again, another quote: "We all sit in a circle and suppose, while the secret sits in the center and knows." It's those kind of people that I find more attractive intellectually, I suppose. They have a kind of look about them as well that's got a confident air. So you are not your reputation. Your reputation resides on the inside. It certainly doesn't reside with people's opinion. So I mean, it's a it's a very broad subject, and I think we all of these link in. Funnily enough, the way they're organised, these parts of the ego link in. So there you are, trying to get everything, get all this stuff into your life, get all these acquisitions. So you are then what you have, and then the next thing is, well, okay, to get more stuff, I need to have a fantastic job with lots of more money in it, so I can get more stuff. And so I've got this particular job, and I'm now somebody who people look up to. And so there I am as a CEO or a manager or a director, or and people will look at me and they'll think, that's a guy who's got his act together, and and so on and so on. And as we work through the ego, you can see that all this is doing is adding layers and layers and layers of separation. And when all these layers start to crumble, or you start to have trouble in your life, you can very much go to any one of these, in some cases all six, and see that what the ego has done here, this idea of the ego, has provided these barriers for you to actually get in touch with what we would call the higher self. And it leaves you wanting pretty much all the time. It's a kind of power that you have over your life. And people generally, when they are looking to get more, and when are they looking to have more and to be more, and to increase their status, they try and use force. There's a fantastic book called Power versus Force, and there's a whole list of ideas with regards to these two elements of power and force, and how they are sort of work you over essentially in your life. And anything that you force is ultimately going to fail, I think. When you get this internal power, it's a much different animal, and I think there's a confidence, there's almost like a smugness about it, which is probably a terrible term, but I think there's a comfort to be had from knowing that you are not drawn by this need for more. You are not drawn by this requirement to have a CV that's absolutely glowing, and you are not drawn by the independent of the good. Sorry, you're independent of the good opinion of other people. I've said that so many times. So it's wonderful, I think, for me to explore the ego in this way, because you get to a point where you think, you know what, I'm going to start thinking differently around these subjects, and the anxiety that I feel around not getting this particular job. Perhaps it's meant to be, perhaps it's there's a lesson here that I need to be learning internally. Perhaps this deal that I didn't get, or perhaps this car that I didn't buy, or couldn't afford was meant to be. And I think when you start looking at things in that way, the strap line, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, starts to become more interesting. So don't worry. Don't worry about the fact that you haven't got the right shoes, you haven't got the right car, job, holiday, partner. I would be more concerned with who you are as a person, because that light shines out all the time, and it's inherently more attractive than, and it's not about being attractive either. It's it's a wonderful quality that you can definitely see in people, and those are the kind of those are the kind of people that I would want in my organization, in my social circle, in my friend circle. I invite you also, as part of this, part of the ego, to go and look at a poem called The Invitation by a lady called Araya Mountain Dreamer. This lady went to a dinner party in the States, and she came home having been to this event, and wrote this book and poem called The Invitation. Please go and look at it. It illustrates perfectly what I mean about this idea that this idea of the ego, and particularly, you are not what you do, you are not your reputation, and what interests, I suppose, most of us more about people than any of those vacuous conversations that you can have in dinner parties. I don't go to many dinner parties. I don't, but when I am in people's company, I'm much more interested in the elements of that poem called The Invitation. So far, you are not what you have, you are not what you do, and you are not what other people think of you. And there are three other parts which I believe are equally as interesting, and we'll go through them. I'll leave you alone now to go off and have a look at these things, and please share your thoughts as well, because as I say, I'm really enjoying this side of my 40s, and we'll continue to have fun with this, because it is fun at the end of the day. And although these videos sometimes come across as a little bit serious, it couldn't be further from the truth. They are serious points, definitely, and we are dealing with people's emotions, anxieties, and worries. And we'll talk about those kind of things in the coming videos, in the coming discussions. So, as always, have a terrific day.